Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the pain running through your family, your history, your blood, it stops here? That the silence, the shame, the shadow wrapped around generations has reached its final breath, not because time heals all wounds, but because you stood up. You, the unexpected one, the overlooked one, the tired, broken, ordinary soul who was never supposed to fight this battle, but did, not for applause, not for revenge, but because something deep inside whispered no more. Every generation carries a certain weight. It arrives in silence, passed through bloodlines, cultures, traumas, and the unseen consequences of choices made long before any alive could object. This weight is not always visible, not often named, but its presence is felt. It lingers in the way a child inherits not only the features of a parent, but their fears, their temper, their silence, and sometimes even their shame. It shows itself in the way entire communities repeat patterns without understanding why. Cycles of violence, bitterness, addiction, despair. The world spins forward, but beneath the motion lies a stillness of repetition, as if something cursed is stuck, replaying itself through the veins of time. Yet not every generation is tasked with ending it. Some are meant to endure, others are meant to preserve. But there are rare moments in history when something shifts. The patterns begin to strain at the seams. The old lies lose their power. And a person is born, not merely to carry the burden, but to break it. That person is not always the one expected. They might not come from power or prestige. In fact, they are often the least likely, overlooked, rejected, small in the eyes of others, and perhaps even in their own. But fate, or more precisely providence, does not look where humans look. It seeks the willing heart, not the decorated one. The chosen one emerges not with a banner or a trumpet, but with a growing ache inside, a sense that something is deeply wrong, and that they cannot simply ignore it. While others learn to live with the darkness, the chosen one finds it unbearable. While others say this is just the way things are, the chosen one feels an urgency, a tension, a fire that says no, this must end. They do not yet know what it means. They do not yet see the full shape of the curse, but they know they cannot sleep through it. And this knowing comes with great cost. To be the chosen one is not a glamorous title. It is not a role won by talent or charm. It is a position of profound loneliness, because to carry what others have grown numb to is to feel pain others have long buried. The chosen one becomes a mirror not to show people who they are, but what they've ignored. And few appreciate the mirror. They may ridicule it. They may call the chosen one dramatic, intense, or unstable. But deep down, they know something true has appeared. To be chosen means to wrestle with God, with self, with history. It means facing demons that were content to remain hidden for centuries. It means enduring the temptation to give in, to fall into the same behaviors, the same patterns, to allow the story to repeat itself one more time. But the chosen one has been marked differently. The pain hits harder. The wrongs feel sharper. They do not adapt to dysfunction, they revolt against it. Still, the power of the chosen one is not in how loud they are, but in their decision to keep going. In every generation, many sense the weight, but few walk into the fire. The chosen one does not wait for validation. They do not require applause. Something within them has decided that even if no one else changes, they will. And in that decision lies the breaking of the curse. Because curses do not end with miracles that erase the past. They end when someone refuses to pass it on. They end when a child sees their father's anger and chooses gentleness. When a daughter feels the weight of generational fear and speaks anyway. When a young man refuses to numb himself like the men before him. When a woman decides to forgive instead of infect the next soul with bitterness. These decisions may not shake the earth, but they shake the spiritual inheritance of those who come after. To be chosen is not about being better. It is about being called and answering. Many are called, but few respond, because the curse is heavy and comfort is seductive. But the one who rises quietly, imperfectly, but faithfully becomes the one through whom the story changes. Not because they are more than human, but because they choose to be fully human in a world that has forgotten what that means. And in that choice, the curse meets its end. The curse is not always a dramatic force. It doesn't always arrive with thunder or fire, nor does it always take the shape of something visibly monstrous. More often than not, it is quiet, consistent, and convincing. It settles into homes, lives in conversations, echoes through family traditions, and takes root in the private choices people make when no one is watching. It is subtle, not because it is weak, but because it is ancient. Its strength lies in its ability to disguise itself as normal. It becomes part of the furniture of life, and because it's familiar, it's no longer seen as dangerous. This darkness is not always some outside threat. It is frequently internal, woven into hearts, habits, and assumptions. It can be something as invisible as pride, as acceptable as bitterness, or as encouraged as ambition at any cost. It can look like coldness passed off as strength, silence dressed up as peace, or manipulation mistaken for leadership. These things are rarely called evil by the world around us. In fact, they're often rewarded. That is what makes the curse so difficult to fight. The battlefield is not always in the open, it is within. When something dark takes hold in a person, family, or society, and no one confronts it, it begins to define the atmosphere. Whole generations can grow up in the shadow of a curse and believe it is just the shape of life. If no one says otherwise, if no one dares to imagine something better, the curse thrives. And not because it has true power, but because it has gone unchallenged for too long. It is not uncommon for people to feel something is wrong and yet still defend it. A man may hate the way his father treated him, but become that very man. A mother may long for freedom, but unknowingly teach her daughter to fear it. A society may cry out for justice, but refuse to let go of the systems that keep it blind. That is the nature of the curse. It convinces you that escaping it is impossible, and worse, that trying is foolish. And yet the curse is not invincible. It feeds on belief. It needs people to agree with it, even passively. It draws its strength from silence, shame, and resignation. It dies when someone refuses to make peace with it. But that refusal is never easy. The person who first stands up will often be misunderstood. The curse has been around longer than them. It has defenders, even victims who have grown used to its chains. It may be hidden behind religion, culture, or even kindness. And so exposing it can feel like betrayal. The darkness the curse brings is not always loud. Often, it is a quiet draining of life, a numbness that spreads, a sense of futility that clouds purpose. People live through it, yes, but they do not live fully. They smile without joy, work without passion, speak without truth. They survive. And after a while, they stop noticing the ache because it's been there too long. That is how the curse wins, by making itself invisible. To understand the nature of the curse, one must first recognize where it hides. It doesn't always look like war or murder or obvious cruelty. It can live in unspoken resentment between siblings, in the casual cruelty of gossip, in the relentless pursuit of success at the cost of the soul, in families where love must be earned, in homes where silence is safer than honesty, in hearts that punish themselves for being vulnerable. It wraps itself around the soul slowly, asking only that we stay quiet, that we don't question, that we carry it to the next person like a gift wrapped in tradition. What makes the curse particularly cruel is that it wears the faces of the people we love. We inherit it from voices we trusted. We learn it from those who raised us. We obey it because it sounds like survival. It doesn't threaten us with destruction, it seduces us with safety. And that is why so few resist it. Because resisting it means choosing the unknown. It means stepping into a truth that may isolate you. It means grieving the false peace you once called home. But if no one chooses that path, the curse goes on. There is no loud alarm to announce the presence of the curse. There is only a quiet ache, a whisper that says, "This isn't how it's meant to be." That whisper is often ignored. But for the chosen one it becomes unbearable. They cannot unsee it, cannot unfeel it, cannot pretend. For them the darkness is not just unwelcome, it is unacceptable. And that moment, the moment when one person decides not to make peace with the curse, is when its undoing begins. There is a mystery in the way time unfolds, and within that mystery there is order, and order not made by human hands. Seasons come and go. Trees know when to shed their leaves, birds know when to fly, and even stars move according to an invisible rhythm. Humanity, for all its pride, is not separate from this design. There are moments woven into the fabric of history when time itself seems to lean in. These are not ordinary moments. They do not come because we have earned them, nor do they arrive when we demand them. They come because they were always meant to come. 2025 is such a moment. It is tempting to believe that darkness will last forever, that evil has gained too much ground, that chaos is too deeply rooted to be undone. People look around and see nations shaking, families breaking, values eroding, and they conclude that this is simply the natural order of things. But that is not how reality is written. Time is not merely an endless loop of despair. God, who watches over the march of centuries, is not an indifferent observer. He is not watching the unfolding of human pain with distant amusement. He has never been absent. His silence is not abandonment. It is timing. There are times when God allows darkness to reach a certain depth, not because he approves of it, but because he is preparing something within it. It is during these times that the heart of humanity is tested. Do they still yearn for the light when all light seems gone? Do they still seek truth when lies are cheaper and more rewarding? Or do they fold themselves into the shape of the world, trying to blend in with the dark to avoid being devoured by it? These are not rhetorical questions, they are real, and they are asked of every soul alive today. But patience is not permission. Just because evil has been tolerated for a time does not mean it will reign forever. There is a line drawn in the unseen, a line not created by men, but placed by the One who holds all things. And once that line is crossed, intervention begins. Not always in the way we expect, no fire falling from the sky, no grand gesture for the cameras, but through people, ordinary people, hidden people, people who have been living with a quiet fire inside them, wondering why they feel out of place in a world that seems so sure of itself. These people are not late. They are right on time. 2025 is not just another year. It carries weight. Not the weight of doom, but of decision. The world has danced too long on the edge of apathy. Lies have been repeated too often. The lines between truth and deception have been blurred until even the well-meaning can no longer tell the difference. And so God moves not with panic, but with precision. He awakens those who have been asleep. He brings clarity where confusion reigned. He gives voice to those who were never supposed to speak. And when he moves, the darkness cannot resist him. This divine timing is not about convenience. It is rarely comfortable. When God acts, he disrupts. He interrupts the cycles. He disturbs the patterns. He dismantles the systems that have grown too familiar with darkness. Those who benefit from the curse will resist this change. They will call it dangerous, radical, or even false. They will use the language of tradition and safety to try and stop what is coming. But the tide has already turned. The chosen ones of this generation, those who feel called to stand, to speak, to live differently, must understand that they are not awakening on their own. They are part of something much larger, something ancient and holy. Their lives are synchronized with a divine rhythm, not random, not insignificant. The world may not recognize them yet. Their names may never be known. But heaven sees, heaven acts, heaven has moved. This is not the beginning of despair, it is the beginning of reckoning. Not the kind that destroys indiscriminately, but the kind that makes all things right again. Not quickly, not easily, but surely. For too long darkness has pretended to be unchallenged. For too long the curse has claimed that no one is coming to end it. But someone has come. Many have come. And more are awakening. Not because they planned it, but because they were born for it. God has chosen this time, and He will not allow the darkness to continue. The idea of being chosen often conjures images of greatness, of someone set apart by skill, wisdom, charisma, or strength. People imagine heroes marked by clarity and confidence, walking with certainty towards some noble end. But the truth is far more uncomfortable, far more human. Those who are truly chosen rarely feel worthy. They are not the loudest in the room, nor the most polished. They may carry wounds, doubts, and scars. What sets them apart is not perfection, but a response, a quiet and persistent yes when the call comes. This yes is not shouted, it is not delivered from a stage, it is whispered in secret places, often between tears. The chosen are not those who volunteer because they think they're ready. They are the ones who respond even when they feel afraid. Especially when they feel afraid. Their willingness does not come from believing in their own power, but from recognizing something holy pulling at them, something they cannot ignore no matter how hard they try. Being chosen doesn't mean the path becomes easier. In fact, it becomes harder, because to be chosen is to be tasked with seeing what others refuse to see and feeling what others have numbed themselves against. It is to walk into a battlefield most people deny exists. Others will call you extreme. They'll say you're taking things too seriously, that you're reading too much into it. But the chosen can't unsee the cracks in the foundation. They can't unfeel the shaking in the ground. The curse becomes unbearable to them in a way it isn't to others. And that's not by accident, it's by design. There is a certain anguish that comes with being chosen. You carry the achish of generations not because you want to, but because no one else will. You wake up with the sense that things must change, and you begin to notice the cost of compromise in everyday moments. It's not just about confronting injustice in grand gestures. It's about refusing to lie when a lie would be easier. It's about choosing integrity over convenience, truth over popularity, healing over hiding. These are small decisions, but they are heavy, and they are holy. The chosen ones are often misunderstood. Their intensity unsettles people. Their refusal to play along with the accepted script creates friction. They are too honest for comfort, too sensitive for a world that values numbness, too awake in a time that prefers sleep. But this is exactly what makes them dangerous to the curse, because the curse depends on silence. It depends on indifference. It depends on people saying, "It's not my problem." The chosen ones never say that, even when they want to, even when it would be easier. Something inside them won't let them. The strength of the chosen one is not loud. It is quiet and stubborn. It grows in solitude, in moments of wrestling with God, with their past, with their limitations. They don't feel strong, but they choose not to give up. And that is the strength the curse fears most. Not brute force, not power or prestige, but the ordinary person who simply won't quit, who keeps praying when nothing changes, who keeps loving when there is no reward, who keeps speaking when their voice shakes. There is no sign stamped on the chosen. You cannot pick them out in a crowd. They are not always eloquent, not always beautiful, not always composed. They are often broken. But in that brokenness is the soil for something divine. God doesn't use the perfect. He uses the available, the surrendered, the willing. That is the pattern from the beginning of time. He chooses the least likely to do the most necessary. And it is in that paradox that the curse begins to tremble. The chosen one becomes a threat not when they gather followers, but when they commit to obedience. That obedience might look quiet. It might look unimpressive. It might look like staying faithful when no one else is watching. But in the unseen, it shifts the atmosphere. It shakes strongholds. The curse begins to lose ground when one person decides they will no longer participate in it, no matter the cost. The world rarely celebrates these people while they're alive. They are often alone in their convictions, left out of circles where compromise is currency. But the heavens watch differently. The heavens recognize the quiet yes, the humble obedience, the unwavering courage. And that is why the chosen are chosen, not because they are the best, but because they are willing to become something the world has forgotten: faithful. The breaking of a curse does not begin in a palace or a courtroom, but in the hidden corners of a human heart. It does not wait for the approval of nations or the applause of crowds. It begins when one person, wounded yet willing, chooses a different path than the one handed to them. There is no grand ceremony to mark the moment when the cycle begins to crack. It happens in silence, in small decisions, in moments that seem insignificant to everyone else. But these choices, made in secret, begin to turn the wheel of history in another direction. We are trained to look for change in loud places. We expect transformation to come through speeches, revolutions, laws. And while those things have their place, they are only as strong as the hearts that uphold them. Real change begins long before the world sees it. It begins when a son, raised in violence, chooses gentleness. When a woman, taught to shrink herself, dares to speak with clarity. When someone who has every reason to give up decides to love again. These are the revolutions that matter most. Not the ones with banners, but the ones with bruises and hope. The curse thrives on repetition. It feeds on the idea that this is how it has always been. If a father lies, the son lies. If a mother carries bitterness, the daughter learns the language of resentment. Pain is passed down not because people are evil, but because they are afraid. They believe that survival means copying what they saw, even if it nearly destroyed them. To break the curse means to interrupt that chain not with anger, but with something far more powerful: mercy. Mercy is not weakness. Mercy is war. It is the refusal to continue what should have ended long ago. When someone who was never protected chooses to become a protector, when someone who was silenced becomes a voice for others, when someone who inherited trauma begins to heal instead of harm, that is the death of the curse. It does not vanish all at once, but it loses ground every time a soul says, "It ends with me." The world may never see these choices for what they are. A father who learns to listen, a mother who apologizes, a friend who forgives without being asked. These acts won't make headlines. But in the invisible realm, they are earthquakes. They dismantle strongholds built over generations. They send tremors through patterns that were once thought unbreakable. And they do not happen by accident. They happen when someone has the courage to feel fully, to see clearly, and to choose differently. To break the curse requires vision, not the kind that sees into the future, but the kind that sees into the truth about where the pain came from, the truth about who was hurt and who became hurtful, the truth about the lies that were whispered so often they began to sound like facts. This vision is not given to the arrogant. It is given to the humble, the ones willing to sit with their pain, to trace the story back, to recognize the way darkness crept in through wounds that were never healed. This is not an easy task. It is easier to blame, easier to lash out or shut down. It takes a rare kind of strength to grieve instead of rage, to forgive instead of punish, to ask hard questions instead of running from them. But this is where the curse begins to unravel. In the courage to confront what was handed down and to say no more, not in bitterness, not in pride, but in fierce love for what could be. The one who breaks the curse is not always the one who caused it. Often, they are the one most affected by it. They carry the weight of everyone's silence, everyone's fear. But within that weight, something sacred forms, the resolve to choose life. And that choice, repeated again and again in the face of old pain, becomes the foundation for a new legacy, a legacy of freedom, of healing, of truth. It only takes one person to turn in a different direction, one person to live in such a way that the next generation doesn't inherit the same war. The curse loses power the moment someone decides to stop surviving and start transforming. That decision is not glamorous. It is not easy, but it is holy, and it is how all things begin to be made new. The end of a curse is not just about the destruction of what once was, it is also about the creation of what must now become. When the darkness is pushed back, when the chains fall, when silence is broken, something new is born in its place. The breaking of the curse is not the finish line, it is the threshold. The chosen one does not merely tear down what was wrong. They are called to build what is right. And this building requires imagination, courage, and relentless faith in a reality that does not yet exist. When a person steps out of a long pattern of pain, they are walking into a space that feels empty. This is the part few speak of. After you've said no more, after you've refused to pass down what was passed to you, after you've broken ties with lies, you stand in the unknown. The curse gave structure. It was twisted, yes, but it was familiar. Now, without it, the air is quiet, the world is open, and nothing is certain. This space is terrifying for those who have never seen life without chains, and yet it is sacred ground. It is the place where something better can finally begin. To step into this new way is not easy. It means you will no longer use fear to motivate, shame to control, silence to protect, or violence to defend. You will build a life that runs against the current, against the habits of your upbringing, against the expectations of the world. There will be voices that say you are naive, that your ideals are unrealistic, that healing is too slow, that love will not survive. But you will continue anyway, not because you have all the answers, but because you carry a vision of something more beautiful than what came before. There is a burden that comes with seeing clearly. Once the light has come, you cannot return to the comfort of numbness. You have seen what bitterness does to families. You have watched what pride does to truth. You have felt what silence does to the soul. And now you are responsible. Not in the sense of guilt, but in the sense of calling. What was once tolerated can no longer be allowed to stand. And so you become a witness to the light, not in speech only, but in how you live, how you forgive, how you build your home, how you raise your voice. The new life does not come fully formed. It is grown like a garden, slowly with care. It takes practice to speak with truth when you were trained to flatter. It takes discipline to remain kind when you were raised by rage. It takes vision to show mercy where vengeance once seemed righteous. The chosen one becomes a cultivator of something unseen, planting seeds of peace in soil once soaked in conflict, building tables where doors were once locked, offering grace where rules used to govern. These things are not small. They are revolutionary. It is not enough to end the curse. That would only leave emptiness in its place. The greater work is to establish something so rooted in goodness that the curse cannot return. This means creating rhythms of honesty, rituals of rest, environments where love is not earned but given, where repentance is not punished but honored. The one who ends the curse becomes a living signpost to a new way of being, not flawless but faithful, not perfect but present. They are not building a monument to themselves, they are creating space for others to be free. There will be days when it feels like the curse is winning again. Old voices will whisper. Old temptations will rise. You will feel the weight of the past tugging at your steps. But you will remember that this journey was never about ease. It was about faithfulness. The one who breaks the curse does not walk by feelings, but by a deeper knowing, and knowing that light is always stronger than shadow. That truth, once spoken, cannot be unspoken, and that a single life, lived fully awake, can shift the destiny of generations. You are not the end. You are the beginning. The future is watching not in fear but in hope, because where there was once darkness, now there is light. Where there was once silence, now there is song. Where there was once a curse, now there is a choice. And you, chosen not for your strength, but for your surrender, have made that choice, not just to end what was broken, but to become what is whole. And now, standing at the edge of all that has been and all that must become, we see it clearly. The curse was never stronger than the one who dared to face it. not because you were perfect or powerful or without fear, but because you were willing. Willing to feel, to break, to question, to heal. Willing to say no more when the world said this is how it's always been. The darkness has had its time. It has whispered long enough, wounded deep enough, ruled quietly enough. But God has spoken. And He has chosen you not to repeat what was, but to begin what must be. You are not here by accident. This is the hour. This is the turning. You are not just the interruption of the curse, you are the evidence of something new. A life reclaimed, a legacy rewritten, a future protected. You are the answer to prayers spoken by mouths that are now dust. You are the fulfillment of a hope buried in silence generations ago. The curse ends with you not because of who you are alone, but because of who is with you. And God will not allow this darkness to continue. The night is breaking. The dawn is yours to carry.